The Velthari Empire had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their ships were the size of cities. Their weapons could break planets in half. They had conquered 47 worlds and enslaved dozens of species. No one had ever beaten them in battle. No one had ever even come close to it. So when their long-range sensors found a small blue planet sending radio signals into space, they did not worry. They sent a single scout ship to look at this new world. The scout came back with pictures and recordings. The species living there called themselves humans. They had only discovered space travel 50 years ago. Their ships were slow and weak. They still fought wars among themselves over small pieces of land. Commander Zorath read the report and laughed. He was the greatest military leader in the Velthari Empire. He had conquered 11 worlds himself. This new planet would be number 12. Send a standard message, he told his communications officer. They have 3 days to surrender. If they refuse, we will destroy them. The message reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. Every government in the world received it at the same time. The translation was simple and clear. Surrender or die. There would be no negotiation. There would be no mercy. In a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the leaders of Earth gathered to decide what to do. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists filled the room. On the main screen, they could see the Velthari fleet. 800 warships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Admiral Kevin Park stood at the front of the room. He was 62 years old and had spent his entire life preparing for a war that he never thought would come. We have 43 ships, he said quietly. Most of them are old cargo vessels with weapons attached. We cannot win a straight fight. The room fell silent. Everyone knew he was right. Then a woman in the back stood up. Her name was Lisa Monroe. She was a captain in the United Earth Defense Force, young for her rank at only 34. But she had a reputation for thinking differently than other officers. May I speak? She asked. Admiral Park nodded. Lisa walked to the front of the room. She looked at the faces around her. Fear, despair, hopelessness. She understood those feelings. But she also knew something that the Velthari did not. They think they know us, she said. They watched our television shows. They listened to our radio signals. They saw our wars and our problems. And they decided we were weak. They decided we would be easy to beat. She pulled up images on the screen. Soldiers in trenches. Cities on fire. People fighting with sticks and rocks against tanks and planes. This is what humans do when we are cornered, she continued. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We find a way to fight. It does not matter if the enemy is bigger or stronger or has better weapons. We fight anyway. And sometimes we win. A general from Russia leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Captain? Lisa smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a very hard decision. They expect us to line up our ships and fight them in open space. They expect us to be honorable and predictable. They expect us to lose. She paused. I am suggesting we do none of those things. Over the next 2 days, Lisa explained her plan. It was crazy. It was desperate. It went against every rule of military strategy. But it was the only chance they had. The 43 ships of the Earth fleet would form a defensive line near the planet. But they would be almost empty. Only 5 crew members on each ship, just enough to keep them running. Everyone else would be hiding in the asteroid belt, on 200 mining vessels equipped with cutting lasers and electromagnetic pulse weapons. Mining ships? Admiral Park asked with doubt in his voice. The Velthari will not scan the asteroid belt, Lisa explained. Why would they? There is nothing there but rocks. They will focus on our fleet near Earth, and when they get close, we will hit them from behind. Dr. Hannah Cole, the scientist who had translated the Velthari message, raised her hand. I have been studying their technology. Their shields work on specific energy frequencies. If we can disrupt those frequencies, their shields will fail. Can you do that? Lisa asked. Hannah nodded slowly. I think so. I will need time. You have 30 hours. The preparations began immediately. Every ship that could fly was pressed into service. Mining companies donated their vessels. Factories worked around the clock to build weapons and equipment. Scientists who had never met before worked together to crack the secrets of Velthury technology. And through it all, Lisa Monroe barely slept. She checked every detail, solved every problem, and refused to let anyone give up hope. On the morning of the third day, the Velthury fleet began its approach. Commander Zorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tiny human ships on his view screen. They were arranged in a neat line, exactly as he had expected. Exactly as every other species had done before their destruction. Pathetic, he said to his officers. They do not even try to run. They just accept their fate. His second-in-command, a younger Velthury named Kess, looked at the sensor readings with a small frown. Commander, should we scan the surrounding area? There could be hidden defenses. Zorath waved his hand dismissively. These primitives? They can barely leave their own planet. What could they possibly hide from us? He gave the order to advance. Far away in the asteroid belt, Lisa Monroe watched the Velthury fleet on her screen. She sat in the command chair of a converted mining vessel called the Iron Horse. Around her, 200 ships waited in silence, hidden among the rocks and ice. They are not scanning us, reported Lieutenant Danny Shaw from the sensor station. They do not know we are here. Lisa nodded. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was calm. Good. Let them come. Let them get confident. She thought about the billions of people on Earth. Families having breakfast. Children going to school. People who had no idea that their entire future depended on what happened in the next few hours. We are going to save them, she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. Whatever it takes. The Velthury fleet moved closer. The trap was set, and humanity waited for its moment to strike. The Velthury fleet moved through space like a cloud of death. 800 warships in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their crews eager for another easy victory. Commander Zorath watched the human defensive line grow larger on his view screen. Soon this would all be over. Soon he would add another world to his collection. All ships report ready, his weapons officer announced. We can begin the attack at your command. Zorath leaned back in his chair. He was enjoying this moment. The calm before the storm. The last few minutes before another species learned its place in the universe. Begin attack, he said. The first wave of plasma fire lit up the darkness of space. Brilliant green bolts of energy streaked toward the human ships. The humans tried to dodge, tried to return fire, but their weapons were too weak. Their shields failed almost immediately. One by one, the ships at the front of the line began to explode. On the bridge of the Iron Horse, Lisa Monroe watched the destruction on her screen. Each explosion was a ship. Each ship held 5 brave men and women who had volunteered to stay behind. They knew they would probably die. They stayed anyway. 15 ships down, Danny reported, his voice shaking. 20, 25. Lisa closed her eyes for just a moment. She would remember their names. She would honor their sacrifice. But right now, she had a job to do. Wait for it, she said. Let them commit fully. The Velthury fleet pushed deeper into the solar system. They chased the remaining human ships toward Earth, firing constantly, destroying everything in their path. They were so focused on the battle in front of them that they never looked behind. They have passed the marker, Danny said. They are fully inside the asteroid belt perimeter. Lisa opened her eyes. All ships, activate jamming signals. Target their shield frequencies. and then hit them with everything we have. 200 ships burst out of the asteroid field at the same time. They came from every direction, like angry bees defending their hive. The jamming signals filled space with electronic noise, scrambling Velthury sensors and disrupting their shield generators. The mining lasers fired. These were not weapons of war. They were tools designed to cut through solid rock. But rock and spaceship hulls are both just matter. The lasers sliced through Velthury armor like it was made of paper. Commander Zorath's bridge shook violently. Alarms screamed from every console. On the view screen, he watched his ships being torn apart by things that looked like industrial equipment. Where did they come from? He shouted. How is this possible? His tactical officer worked frantically at his console. They were hiding in the asteroids. We never scanned. We did not think. Our shields are failing. Someone else yelled. They are jamming our frequencies. The EMP weapons fired next. Electromagnetic pulses washed over the Velthury ships, frying computers and navigation systems. Ships that were not destroyed began spinning out of control, their crews unable to steer or fight back. Lisa watched the chaos unfold with grim satisfaction. It was working. Her crazy, desperate plan was actually working. Focus fire on their engine sections, she ordered. I want them crippled, not destroyed. We need their technology. The battle lasted for 3 hours. The Velthury had never faced anything like this. Their enemies had always stood in neat lines and died with dignity. These humans fought dirty. They hid behind rocks. They attacked from behind. They refused to follow any rules. When the Velthury finally managed to regroup and retreat, they had lost 237 ships. Some were destroyed completely. Others drifted dead in space, their crews still alive but helpless. Commander Zorath stared at the casualty reports. His hands were shaking. In 300 years of conquest, the Velthury had never lost more than 50 ships in a single battle. He had just lost almost a third of his fleet to primitives using mining equipment. Commander, his communications officer said nervously, we are receiving a message from the human fleet. Zorath looked at the screen. A human woman appeared. She had dark hair and tired eyes, but she was smiling. That smile made Zorath's blood run cold. My name is Lisa Monroe, she said. I command what is left of Earth's defense force. You came to our home to destroy us. You expected us to surrender. You expected us to be easy prey. She leaned closer to the camera. You were wrong, and now you have a choice. You can take your surviving ships and leave our system. Go back to your empire and tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not worth the cost. Zorath found his voice. You think this changes anything? I will call for reinforcements. I will bring 1,000 ships. 10,000. We will burn your planet to ash. Lisa nodded as if she had expected this answer. Then we will be ready for them too. You see, Commander, you made a mistake. You looked at our history and saw weakness. You saw us fighting among ourselves and thought we would be easy to conquer. Her smile faded. Her eyes became hard. What you should have seen was practice. Humans have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have gotten very, very good at it. And now, for the first time in our history, we have a common enemy. You have united us in a way we could never unite ourselves. She paused to let that sink in. So go ahead. Call your reinforcements. Bring your entire empire. We will be waiting. And we will show you what humans do when someone threatens our home. The transmission ended. Commander Zorath sat in silence for a long time. Around him, his officers waited for orders. Finally, he spoke. Send a message to the High Command. Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them. He paused, struggling with the words. Tell them we have encountered unexpected resistance." It was the biggest understatement in Veltari history. On the Iron Horse, Lisa Monroe finally allowed herself to breathe. They had won the first battle, but she knew it was only the beginning. The Veltari would come back. They would come back with more ships and bigger weapons and a burning desire for revenge. She looked at her crew. They were exhausted. They were scared. But they were also proud. They had done something that no one thought was possible. "Get some rest," she told them. "All of you. Because tomorrow, we start preparing for round 2. Danny Shaw approached her after the others had left. "Do you really think we can beat them again? When they come back with their whole fleet?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. "I do not know," she admitted. "But I know that we have to try. And I know something else too." "What is that?" She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Veltari were already calling for help. A storm was coming. The biggest storm humanity had ever faced. "I know that they still do not understand what we are," she said. "And by the time they figure it out, it will be too late." 3 weeks passed after the first battle. 3 weeks of waiting, preparing, and wondering when the enemy would return. On Earth, people tried to live their normal lives. They went to work. They took care of their families. But everyone knew that something big was coming. The sky itself seemed to hold its breath. Lisa Monroe had been promoted to admiral after the victory. She did not feel like celebrating. She spent every waking hour in the war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, planning for the next attack. The walls were covered with maps and diagrams. Screens showed information from sensors scattered across the solar system. Dr. Hannah Cole worked beside her, studying the captured Veltari technology. The dead ships floating in the asteroid belt had given them a treasure of information. Weapons, shields, engines, computers. Human scientists worked day and night to understand it all. "We have figured out how their plasma weapons work," Hannah reported one morning. "We cannot build our own yet, but we can build armor that resists them better." Admiral Kevin Park entered the room with a tablet in his hand. His face was pale. "They are here," he said simply. "Our long-range sensors just picked them up." Lisa felt her stomach drop. "How many?" Park handed her the tablet. The number on the screen made her heart stop for a moment. 2,500 ships. The Veltari had not just sent reinforcements. They had sent an entire armada. Enough firepower to destroy every planet in the solar system 10 times over. "We have 300 ships now," Park said quietly, "with the new hybrid technology. But against that many." Lisa studied the tactical data. Her mind raced through possibilities, calculating odds, looking for any advantage. The old tricks would not work again. The Veltari would be expecting traps this time. They would scan every asteroid, check every hiding place. "We need a different approach," she said finally. "We cannot beat them with force. We need to beat them with strategy." Over the next week, a new plan came together. It was even more dangerous than the last one. It required perfect timing and incredible bravery. But it was the only chance they had. The Veltari fleet entered the solar system in a massive formation. Commander Zorath was no longer in charge. He had been replaced by High Commander Vethron, the most experienced military leader in the Empire. Vethron had studied the reports from the first battle. He had learned from Zorath's mistakes. "Scan everything," he ordered as they approached. "Every rock, every moon, every shadow. These humans like to hide. We will find them." His sensors swept across space, looking for any sign of the enemy. They found the human fleet near Mars. 300 ships, arranged in attack formation. "Only 300? Vethron said with disgust. "They are either brave or stupid." "Perhaps both," his second officer suggested. Vethron ordered his fleet forward. But unlike Zorath, he kept his formation tight. He did not spread out his ships. He did not chase after individual enemies. He moved slowly, carefully, like a giant fist ready to crush anything in its path. The human fleet engaged. They darted around the edges of the Valkyrie formation, firing quick attacks and retreating before the enemy could respond. But they were not doing much damage. Their weapons bounced off Valkyrie shields. Their ships were destroyed one by one. "They are trying the same tactics as before," Veteran observed. "They think we are fools." He ordered his fleet to continue advancing. The humans were annoying, but they were not a real threat. Soon his ships would reach Earth, and then this war would be over. But Lisa Monroe was not on any of those 300 ships. She was on a tiny shuttle, hiding in the debris field left over from the first battle. With her were 50 of the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. Captain Marcus Hayes led the ground team. He was a big man with calm eyes and steady hands. "The command ships are separating from the main formation," Danny reported over the radio. He was watching from a hidden sensor post on one of Mars's moons. "They are moving into the gap we created." Lisa nodded. The human attacks had not been random. Every strike, every retreat had been designed to push the Valkyrie fleet into a specific shape, to create an opening in their formation. An opening that led straight to the command ships at the center. "All teams, prepare for insertion," Lisa ordered. The tiny shuttles launched from their hiding spots. There were 10 of them, each carrying 5 soldiers. They were so small that the Valkyrie sensors dismissed them as debris. They slipped through the gaps in the enemy formation like ghosts. The plan was simple, but incredibly risky. Board the command ships. Capture or kill the enemy leaders. Without their commanders, the Valkyrie fleet would be confused and leaderless. Their rigid hierarchy, which was normally a strength, would become their greatest weakness. Lisa's shuttle attached to the hull of High Commander Veteran's flagship. Marcus Hayes and his team cut through the outer plating and entered the ship. The corridors were huge, built for creatures much larger than humans. But humans were smaller, faster, and better at close combat. The fighting was brutal. Valkyrie soldiers rushed to defend their commander. They were strong and well-armed. But the humans had trained for this moment. They moved like shadows, using the ship's own structure for cover. They shot from angles the Valkyrie could not predict. Marcus led his team through the ship, leaving destruction behind them. They lost people. Good people. Friends. But they kept moving forward. Nothing would stop them. Finally, they reached the command bridge. The doors were thick and heavily guarded. But the humans had brought special equipment designed to cut through Valkyrie metal. The doors fell. The team rushed inside. High Commander Veteran stood at the center of the bridge, surrounded by his officers. He was the largest Valkyrie Lisa had ever seen, nearly 10 feet tall with scales the color of old blood. But when he saw the humans, something changed in his eyes. Something that looked almost like respect. "You are the ones who beat Zorath," he said. His voice was deep and calm. Marcus pointed his weapon at Veteran's head. "Your fleet is leaderless now. Surrender, and this ends peacefully." Veteran looked around at his officers. Most of them were either dead or wounded. The humans stood among them, battered and bleeding, but still standing. Still fighting. "The old writings warned us," Veteran said slowly. "Never corner a creature that fights to survive. Never underestimate a species that refuses to die." He lowered his head. "I surrender." The word spread through the Valkyrie fleet like a virus. The High Commander had fallen. The command structure was broken. Ships stopped firing. Captains waited for orders that would never come. On the bridge of the enemy flagship, Lisa Monroe looked out at the frozen battle. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had won again. But she knew this was not the end. The Valkyrie Empire was vast and powerful. They would not accept defeat easily. Sooner or later, they would come back. And when they did, humanity would be ready. She looked at Marcus and his surviving soldiers. They were exhausted, wounded, but alive. They had done the impossible. "Let us go home," she said. "We have a lot of work to do." The news of High Commander Vethran's capture traveled across the galaxy at the speed of light. On the Velthri homeworld, the High Council met in emergency session. For 3,000 years, they had ruled the stars without challenge. Now, twice in a row, their mighty fleets had been beaten by creatures they had dismissed as primitives. Elder Korath, the oldest member of the council, read the reports in silence. His scales had faded with age, but his mind was still sharp. "2 fleets," he said finally. "Thousands of ships. The finest commanders in our empire. And still these humans survive." The younger council members argued among themselves. Some wanted to send an even larger fleet. Others suggested using the planet-killer weapons that had been banned for centuries. A few even whispered about complete extermination, wiping out every human in existence. But Korath raised his hand, and the room fell silent. "We have conquered many species," he said slowly. "The Talari surrendered after one battle. The Kreeth begged for mercy within days. The Vons simply accepted their fate." He paused. "These humans are different. They are primitives," one of the younger counselors protested. "They should have been easy prey." "Should have been," Korath agreed. "But they were not. And that is what we must understand." He stood up, his old bones creaking. "Send a diplomat. Not a fleet. A single ship under a flag of truce. Let us talk to these humans. Let us learn what they truly are." The decision shocked many in the Empire. The Velthri did not negotiate with conquered species. They dictated terms. But Korath was wise, and his words carried weight. Ambassador Kethran arrived in the solar system 1 month later. His diplomatic vessel was sleek and powerful, but it flew with shields down and weapons cold. A sign of peaceful intentions, the meeting took place on a space station built in neutral territory, far from both Earth and the Velthri fleet. Lisa Monroe led the human delegation. She had not slept properly in months. The stress had put gray streaks in her dark hair, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Kethran studied the humans carefully as he entered the meeting room. They were so small, barely reaching his chest. Their bodies looked soft and weak compared to Velthri scales. Yet these fragile creatures had destroyed 2 of the mightiest fleets in the galaxy. "I am Ambassador Kethran," he began, his translator turning his words into human speech. "I come with an offer from the High Council." Lisa nodded. "We are listening." "The Empire is prepared to recognize Earth as an independent world," Kethran said. "We will withdraw all military forces from your system. In exchange, humanity will agree to remain within your solar system for 100 years. You will not expand into space. You will not build warships capable of interstellar travel." Admiral Park, sitting beside Lisa, leaned forward. "You want to contain us. Keep us in a cage while you figure out how to beat us." Kethran did not deny it. "The Empire needs time to reconsider our approach to your species. 100 years of peace benefits both our peoples." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. She thought about everything humanity had been through. The fear when the first message arrived. The desperate battles. The friends she had lost. And she thought about what might happen if they refused this offer. The Velthri had planet-killer weapons. They had not used them yet, probably because they wanted to capture Earth intact. But if humanity pushed them too far, if the Empire felt truly threatened, they might decide that destroying one small planet was better than risking their entire civilization. "We need time to consider," Lisa said finally. "Give us 1 day." Kethran nodded. "I will wait." That night, Lisa walked alone through the corridors of the space station. Through the windows, she could see Earth in the distance, a tiny blue dot against the endless black of space. Her home. The home of 8 billion people who were counting on her to make the right DECISI. And Dr. Hannah Cole found her staring out at the stars. "You are thinking about accepting," Hannah said. It was not a question. Lisa nodded slowly. 100 years is a long time. Long enough to develop our technology. Long enough to build a real fleet. Long enough to become strong enough that they will never threaten us again. Or long enough for them to find a way to destroy us. Yes, Lisa admitted. That too. She turned to face Hannah. What would you do? Hannah thought carefully before answering. I am a scientist. I believe in taking risks when the potential reward is worth it. But I also believe in knowing when to retreat, to rebuild, to come back stronger. She paused. These 100 years could be a prison, or they could be a gift. Lisa looked back at Earth. Our ancestors crawled out of the ocean. They survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They always found a way to adapt, to grow, to become something more. She smiled faintly. I think we can do a lot in 100 years. The next morning, Lisa returned to the negotiating table. Catherine watched her with his unblinking eyes. We accept your terms, Lisa said. With one condition. Name it. When the 100 years end, we have the right to travel freely through the galaxy. No restrictions. No borders. We will explore, trade, and interact with other species as equals. Catherine considered this. It was a bold demand. It meant that in a century, humanity would be free to expand throughout the galaxy, potentially rivaling the Empire itself. But what choice did he have? His people had already lost 2 fleets. The Council was desperate to avoid losing more. And deep down in a part of himself he did not want to admit existed, Catherine was curious about what these strange little creatures might become. Agreed, he said. The treaty was signed that afternoon. The Valkyrie fleet withdrew from the solar system. For the first time in months, the sky above Earth was empty of enemy ships. On the surface, people celebrated in the streets. They had survived. Against impossible odds, they had won their freedom. For 100 years at least, humanity was safe. But Lisa did not celebrate. She stood in her office, looking at plans for the future. New ships to be built. New technologies to be developed. New colonies to be established on Mars and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Admiral Park entered her office with a cup of coffee. You should rest, he said. You have earned it. Lisa shook her head. No time to rest. The clock is already ticking. She pointed at a calendar on her wall. 100 years sounds like a long time, but it will pass faster than we think. And when it ends, the Valkyrie will be waiting. She picked up a pen and began writing notes on a planning document. We surprised them twice because they did not know what we were capable of, she said. When those 100 years are up, I want them to look at humanity and see something that makes them afraid. Not because we want war, but because fear is the only thing that will keep them from ever threatening us again. Park nodded slowly. He understood. This piece was not an ending. It was a beginning. The real work was just starting. 100 years passed like a dream. The humans who had signed the treaty with the Valkyrie were long dead. Lisa Monroe had passed away at the age of 91, surrounded by her grandchildren, still giving orders from her hospital bed. Admiral Park had lived to see the first human colony on Mars before dying peacefully in his sleep. Dr. Hannah Cole's research had changed everything, opening doors to technologies that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations. But their legacy lived on in every ship, every colony, every child born under alien skies. The solar system had transformed beyond recognition. Mars was green now. Its red deserts turned into forests and farmlands by terraforming technology that Hannah Cole had helped develop. Venus floated in a shell of orbiting mirrors that cooled its surface to livable temperatures. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn hosted cities with millions of people, and the asteroid belt had become the greatest shipyard in human history. Admiral Samantha Green stood on the observation deck of the USC Unity, the flagship of the first expedition fleet. She was 47 years old, with her grandmother Lisa's dark hair and determined eyes. The blood of pioneers ran through her veins. Through the window, she could see her fleet stretching across space. 1,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. They were sleek and beautiful, nothing like the clumsy mining vessels that had fought in the first battle. These ships were built for war, built for exploration, built to show the galaxy what humanity had become. "Admiral," said Captain Rachel Kim, her second in command, "all ships report ready. The fleet is prepared to jump to hyperspace." Samantha nodded. "Any word from the Valkyrie?" "Their border patrol has been tracking us for the past hour. They have not transmitted anything yet." Samantha smiled. She could imagine their confusion. For 100 years, they had watched humanity from a distance, waiting to see what would happen. They had expected the humans to fall apart, to fight among themselves, to waste their time on petty conflicts. Instead, they had watched humanity unite. They had watched human scientists unlock the secrets of Valkyrie technology and then surpass it. They had watched a species that should have been primitive build an empire within their own solar system. And now, the 100 years were over. The cage was open. "Take us to the border," Samantha ordered. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Space folded around them like a piece of paper being crumpled, and suddenly they were light years away from home. Standing at the edge of Valkyrie territory, a Valkyrie patrol ship waited for them. It was small compared to the human fleet, a single scout vessel designed for observation rather than combat. Its captain appeared on the view screen, a young Valkyrie with scales that had not yet darkened with age. "You are in violation of the treaty," the captain said, but his voice shook slightly. "The 100 years have not yet expired." "Actually," Samantha replied calmly, "they expired at midnight Solar Standard Time. 6 hours ago. Check your records." The Valkyrie captain looked away, consulting his computer. When he looked back, his expression had changed. Fear. Samantha recognized it well. It was the same fear that Commander Zarth had shown when he realized he was losing the first battle. "The Empire will not allow this," he tried again. "You cannot simply expand into our territory." "We are not expanding into your territory," Samantha corrected him. "We are traveling through space that belongs to no one. Unless you are claiming that the entire galaxy is Valkyrie property?" The captain had no answer for that. Samantha leaned forward in her chair. "Let me tell you what is going to happen. We are going to explore the galaxy. We are going to meet other species, trade with them, learn from them, and teach them. We are going to build alliances and partnerships based on mutual respect, not conquest and slavery." She paused. "And if anyone threatens us or anyone under our protection, we will respond. Proportionally, if possible. Decisively, if necessary." The captain stared at her. Behind him, Samantha could see other Valkyrie officers watching the conversation with wide eyes. "The High Council will hear of this," the captain said finally. It sounded more like a plea than a threat. "Good," Samantha replied. "Tell them something else too. Tell them that we remember everything. We remember how they came to our world expecting easy prey. We remember the friends we lost in those first battles. We remember 100 years of watching and waiting and preparing." Her voice grew harder. "And tell them this. We are not interested in revenge. We are not going to invade the Valkyrie homeworld or destroy your fleets. That is not who we are. But if you ever threaten humanity again, We will not show mercy a second time. We gave you a chance to leave us alone. You took it. That was the smartest decision your empire ever made." She cut the transmission. The Valkyrie patrol ship turned and fled back toward its own territory. Samantha watched it go with a mix of satisfaction and sadness. War had made humanity strong, but she hoped that peace would make them wise. "Admiral," Rachel said softly, "where do we go now?" Samantha looked at the star map displayed on her screen. Thousands of stars, each one a potential destination. Thousands of worlds waiting to be discovered. Thousands of species who had never met a human. "Everywhere," she said. "We go everywhere." The fleet jumped again, plunging deeper into the unknown galaxy. Behind them, the solar system shrank to a tiny point of light before disappearing entirely. Back on Earth, in a museum that had once been a war room, tourists walked past displays showing the history of humanity's first contact with alien life. They saw videos of Commander Zarath's ultimatum. They saw images of the first battle, mining ships fighting against warships. They saw pictures of Lisa Monroe, Kevin Park, Hannah Cole, Marcus Hayes, and all the other heroes who had saved their species. And at the end of the tour, they came to a wall with a simple plaque. The words on it had become humanity's unofficial motto, quoted in speeches and written on the hulls of ships. They broke the oldest rule in the galaxy. They underestimated us. We made sure they would never make that mistake again. A little boy stood looking at the plaque, too young to fully understand what it meant. His mother knelt beside him. "What does it say, Mom?" he asked. She smiled and ruffled his hair. "It says that no matter how scared you are, no matter how big the problem seems, you should never give up. Because humans always find a way." The boy nodded seriously. Then he turned and looked out the window, up at the sky where the stars were beginning to appear in the evening darkness. Somewhere out there, 1,000 ships carried his species toward an unknown future. Somewhere out there, other species were learning a lesson that the Valkyrie had learned the hard way. Never underestimate humans. They had clawed their way from caves to the stars. They had faced extinction and refused to die. They had taken the worst the universe could throw at them and come back stronger. And they were just getting started.